The heavy wooden doors of the church closed behind her with a muted thud. But to Ariel Thompson, it sounded like the final echo of a life quietly locking into place. The world beyond those doors disappeared in an instant, leaving her inside a cathedral of white roses, glowing candles, and expectations she no longer knew how to carry. The wedding music swelled softly, delicate and hopeful, wrapping itself around the guests like a promise. To everyone watching, it was a perfect beginning. To Ariel, it felt like a countdown. Her lace veil brushed against her shoulders as she took a slow, trembling step down the aisle, fingers clenched tightly around her bouquet, as though it were the only thing anchoring her to the floor. She had imagined this moment since she was a child, walking toward love, toward safety, toward a future she believed would finally make sense. Yet with every step forward, a strange heaviness settled deeper in her chest. When Ariel lifted her eyes toward the altar, her breath caught. Daniel stood there waiting, tall and polished in his tailored suit, his smile fixed perfectly in place. Everyone had always said she was lucky to have a man so confident, so successful, so attentive. But as their eyes met, something inside her recoiled. His smile didn't reach his eyes, it never had. In that moment, an instinct she had ignored for months began screaming for her attention. This wasn't excitement. This wasn't nerves. This was fear, cold, crawling certainty that she was walking toward something irreversible, something wrong. She tried to steady herself, telling her mind to stop inventing ghosts, where there were none. But her body knew before her heart would admit it. Then it happened. A firm grip closed gently around her arm, startling her out of her thoughts. Man stepped close beside her, close enough that only she could hear him. His voice was low, rough, and urgent, carrying the weight of experience and regret. "You're in danger," he whispered. "Pretend I'm your dad." Ariel froze. The music faded. The church blurred. In that single moment, everything she had known fractured. The man beside her was a stranger, broad-shouldered, weathered, his silver-threaded beard trimmed neatly, leather gloves worn smooth by time. He wore a black vest marked with the unmistakable emblem of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. Everything about him should have terrified her, yet it didn't. She didn't turn her head, but she felt him shift slightly, angling his body between her and the altar as though shielding her without making a scene. Murmurs rippled through the guests as confusion spread. Ariel's heart thundered so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. "Pretend I'm your dad." The words echoed in her mind, colliding painfully with memories of the father she had buried 5 years earlier. He had been her compass, her safety, the man who taught her to trust her instincts. Losing him had left a hollow ache she learned to live with, but never truly healed. And now, standing beside this stranger, she felt something unfamiliar bloom through her panic. Safety. It made no sense. It shouldn't have been possible, but it was real. They reached the altar, and Ariel finally saw Daniel clearly. His eyes flicked toward the biker beside her, irritation flashing across his face before being quickly masked by charm. The sight sent a chill through her spine. She remembered the arguments she'd brushed off, the way Daniel always needed to know where she was, who she was with, why she needed time alone. She remembered how he insisted she'd stop seeing certain friends, how he subtly criticized her mother, how every compromise slowly became a surrender. She had told herself this was love, that relationships required sacrifice. But standing there now, she understood the truth she had refused to face. Love was never supposed to feel like shrinking. The biker leaned closer again, his voice barely audible. He told her he had overheard Daniel the night before, drunk and bragging in a bar about how marriage would finally give him control, about how Ariel's inheritance would solve his financial problems, about how he would handle her if she resisted. Ariel felt her knees weaken. The room tilted. She glanced at the man beside her, and he nodded once, grim and certain. Her fear transformed into clarity so sharp it almost hurt. She tried to speak when the officiant prompted her, but her voice faltered. Her palms were slick with sweat. Before Daniel could react, the biker stepped forward slightly, not aggressively, but protectively, like a father standing between his child and an oncoming storm. Gasps filled the church as Daniel's composure cracked, barked angrily, demanding the biker leave, his voice rising with each word. At the back of the church, several other bikers stood quietly, respectful but alert, their presence unmistakable. Ariel realized then that she wasn't powerless. She wasn't alone. She had ignored her instincts out of fear of disappointing others, but now she could see clearly. Daniel wasn't her future. He was a cage. The biker leaned in one final time. "You're not marrying him today," he said calmly. "I won't let him hurt you." He told her his name was Michael Callahan. He told her he hadn't always been a good man. He spoke of mistakes, of rage, of a daughter who ran away because of him and never came back. He said he couldn't save her, but he could save someone else. Ariel felt tears slide silently down her cheeks. Michael wasn't just protecting her. He was redeeming himself. When Daniel lunged and grabbed her arm, the illusion shattered completely. The church erupted in gasps. Before Ariel could react, Michael moved, placing himself between them like an unbreakable wall. For the first time in her life, Ariel didn't apologize. She stepped back, shaking but awake. Daniel shouted, his mask on, revealing the danger beneath. The bikers moved forward in unison, calm but absolute. The police were called. The truth spilled out. Debts, violence, lies. Ariel's mother arrived, holding her tightly, whispering thank you through tears. Not because Michael was a biker, but because he listened when no one else did. Weeks later, Ariel rebuilt her life slowly, carefully. She visited Michael often, finding him outside his clubhouse, polishing his bike, greeting her with a nod that grew warmer each time. He told her stories about his daughter, about regret, about choosing redemption every day. Ariel learned to trust herself again. And one afternoon, she handed him a small box. Inside was a silver bracelet engraved with 2 words, "Chosen Family." Michael's hands trembled not with strength, but with forgiveness. And as Ariel walked away from the darkest chapter of her life, she understood something she would carry forever. Sometimes the heroes we fear are the ones who save us, and sometimes the family we need finds us when we least expect it.